over the break we were doing, this is the Russian for your cup, Russian translation. And if you look at any of your foreign languages, what they will do is the same thing. They will say moja česka, which means adverb verb, or they do delja česka, adverb verb. See, now in 1917, the Russian Stalin went to Rothschild to borrow money and put Russia into bankruptcy to fight the Bolshevik Revolution. Under international bankruptcy, you had 70 years and you get 1987 plus 90 days and 45 days of trust, and you get 1988. And what happened in 1988? President Ronald Reagan said, "Tear down that wall, Mr. Gorbachev." Well, guess what happened? At the stroke of midnight, about an hour after he said that, was the stroke of midnight, and the 70 years international bankruptcy plus 45 days of trust plus the 3-day Lemon Law and 90 days to become sovereign expired. Ronald Reagan knew that. So by him making the statement, everybody regarded Ronald Reagan to be this big hero that brought down the Iron Curtain. The Iron Curtain was no more than the expiration of the 70-year international bankruptcy trust. The Russian bankruptcy dollar went from $1 to 10 cents. And then Russia got their heat turned off for the next 10 years because they had no commerce to import. They cut down half of all the trees in Russia, the Black Forest. Then they discovered they had gold and uranium and coal and tons of oil, and they dug it all up, and now they export it, and the ruble is back up on standard. But they're just barely becoming capitalistic, and they're just finally coming out of the 1988. It's been 23 years, and they're getting themselves back on their feet. But they've been out of bankruptcy as a sovereign country, exporting their oil and their coal and their gold to rebuild their country, their infrastructure. So, and Stalin built all the railroads, and by sending human beings to the Gulag to mine gold, to send to Moscow to build the railroad, and these people would work until they starved to death, and they genocided 200 million people to mine the gold and the resources to build a new infrastructure of Russia, because they had no resources or food to feed the people. So they had to reduce the population because they couldn't import the food nor grow enough food to feed the people. They didn't have technology. These are events that take place when a society breaks down. And they dealt with it internally. They didn't want anybody knowing what their problems were. You guys got the same thing down here. You have your timetables. When your bankruptcy took place, and you're still in bankruptcy, but by the time you become sovereign, and you may come out of bankruptcy before that because you have, I don't know, probably 1,000 gold mines. They're punching out stuff. Your dollar's worth more than U.S. currency today. You control 20% of the world's lithium out here, which is going to be the battery technology of automobiles. So you guys got a lot of resources. You got all your oil reserves offshore as well as onshore that you're discovering. So you guys got lots of years of resources to keep Australia up and running. But you know what? The Aborigines own the land, and everybody else has trespassed on it. So that's why they're looking to me to, under Robert's Rules of Order, set up a government of corporation. Whereas they used to be in faith, they realize that corporate structure is the only way that they're going to survive in a corporate world and maintain the status quo of their assets. Yes, Sam?
Some of us here have been to courses where we have heard that the Australians have printed out as much as 10 times the amount of fiat money or paper money as opposed to the amount of gold that the Federal Reserve has got in stock. Therefore, throughout history, the gold value has increased and the paper value has decreased to meet up at some point, looking at a variety of graphs which have been sent through the email. From what you've just said, is that Australia, due to its natural resources, may come out of bankruptcy much earlier than 2022, I think was what you had on the board,
Right?
because of our resources. How you shook your hand from left to right, which means you didn't agree with the fact that the currency, or I should say the paper money that we have, is that much of a difference between what we have in reserves and what is actually in circulation.
If your government wanted to pull all the gold out of the ground, and we wanted to pull all the gold out of our ground, and the Russians wanted to pull all the gold out of their ground, and their coal and their oil and all their mineral resources, there'd be such a surplus of everything that it would devalue all of its values, okay? Money is just a means of exchange on any given day. And how deep in the ground have you dug? 100 feet? Okay, you can go down 50 miles and find stuff, you know? They got mines down in South Africa that are 3,000 to 4,000 feet deep.
50 miles is 80 kilometers.
No,
Can
you
we
say
do
if you go down 50 miles in the ground, you can probably still find gold down there, you know? But the temperature, when you get down to a certain level, it gets hot because now you got heat from the earth coming up. You know, if you go down only I don't know, I think it's 20 feet in the ground, the temperature is 50 degrees year round. I don't care if it's the Arctic or it's in the middle of a desert. The temperature is the same underground. All the caves in the world maintain their same temperature year round because it's an underground.
So all this stuff about the papers not being worth any because it's not banked by gold, what's your view on that?
That's nonsense. You got to what are your roads worth in this country? That's backed, you know, your roads, your buildings, your cars, your infrastructure, your intellectual intelligence, the minerals in the ground are still there. You can sell, you buy stock in Hecla mines based on how many ounces of silver and gold and copper are still in the ground and what it's valued at. And then they go ahead and they take the daily exchange rate and they multiply it times what the reserves are in the ground, and that's what establishes the price of the stock.
It has nothing to do with what's already above the ground.
No, that's irrelevant, because what they do is they pull all this gold out of the ground and they refine it down to probably a 25%. I was up in Alaska. I went up to Fairbanks, Alaska. This lady picked me up at the airport because I did a seminar up there just back about 8 years ago. She says, "Hey, how'd you like to see my $3 million?" And I'm going, "Where do you keep it?" She says, "Come on, I'll drive you over there." And she drives me over, it's about 5 miles out of town. She says, "That big pile of dirt there, it's about 50 feet tall, just a big pyramid." I says, "This is a nice Cadillac, brand new 2002 Cadillac." She says, "Yeah, I took 2 5-gallon pails of dirt off of that pile to buy this Cadillac. That's how rich the gold is in that pile of dirt." She says, the machine came through here and they dug up my mine, they separated it all out and gave me this big pile of refined dirt. And every time I need money, I just go there and shovel up another 5-gallon pail and take it down to the assay office, and they give me so much cash, and I pay taxes on whatever gold I shovel up and break out. As long as it's in that refined state, it's tax-free.
Can I have her address?
Point is, that's the way everywhere. You go down to all your mines all throughout Australia, they will dig it out of the ground, and they'll pile it up there. They know exactly what its assay value is per ton, and as long as it maintains a specific ore to dirt ratio, it's tax-free sitting there. And of course you have security cameras around here. Nobody's going to go up and pick a 5-gallon pail up and walk off property with it. So, and as long as the gold is, like right now, it's $1,000 an ounce. They know exactly how much they need to run the business and refine it, pay the taxes, pay the insurance, satisfy the shareholders, and not disrupt the status quo of how many ounces of gold are available planet-wide, so they keep the price stable. Mm-hmm. Then they go ahead and they say, well, you know, if gold jumps at $2,000 or $3,000 an ounce, that pile of dirt just might disappear overnight. And that's how fast they'll refine it down.
Okay. Now you also mentioned in your answer before that what the roads, what the buildings are worth.
That's all part of value.
So you're saying the dollar is backed by
Infrastructure,
infrastructure as well.
yes.
So the money that the country has borrowed, what is it, 78 billion or something that we've borrowed over the last couple of years, that's gone into infrastructure, that's a solid investment into the dollar.
Right, because inflation is going to just keep on what it costs to build today versus what it's going to cost 10 years from now is going to be totally different.
So there might not be a complete waste of money putting all this money into the country.
If you put in the road's going to go ahead and put up factories along the road and get the commerce to and from. It's going to generate taxes. It's going to generate jobs. It's going to create a chain reaction of events. You know, when I was 20 years old, I worked for $100 a week. I supported my wife and my child in an apartment, but I couldn't really live on $100 a week, so I had to go out and get a second job. I drove cab when I was 20 years old. And I figured I was never going to get rich using my back, so I had to go to school and get an education. And I started college when I was 21 years old, and I stayed in college until 1987, 17 years. And then this program, I started in 1980 when I went to school full-time. I still did my law studies. And I worked third shift nights. I worked third shift nights so I could go to school full-time days. I was a college professor for 3 years, 1977, 78, and 79. I taught welding technology, metallurgy, and blueprint reading through engineering.
Blueprint.
Blueprint, right.
Blueprint.
You have to have a blueprint to build a building. You have to know what the symbols mean. You have to know you have to know the coefficient of expansion of metals, gases, concrete, glass, and how they interface each other, how you mix them together, all those kind of things. Engineering courses, metallurgy courses. I took all that stuff. I was curious. He who controls metal controls the world. Everything's built out of metal. This building's got a superstructure of metal.
There are many who believe that borrowing all this money from the world banks only helps to keep us enslaved to external powers.
What external power?
The world banks, the
Everybody files bankruptcy. They just run the bill. Okay, they built this hotel complex in Austin, Texas for $700 million. That means they got to get like $2,500 a night per room. That's ridiculous. Nobody's going to pay that. So as soon as the guy gets done building the building, he files bankruptcy. And the building is sold for cash at auction for $50 million. Now the guy can afford to rent the rooms out at $100 a night and fills the whole place up. And who got stuck? All the contractors got stuck. But the contractors who participated in that had borrowed their resources from the iron company, right? And so the contractors then had to file bankruptcy because they couldn't pay back the iron, the guy who produced the iron that they built into the structure in the first place. So everybody took a little piece of this bankruptcy going all the way back to the resources when they dug the ore out of the ground. The end result is they got this beautiful building where they can afford to get $100 a night and they paid for it in cash at a bankruptcy auction.
Doesn't make it right.
No, it's stealing. It's legal stealing. It goes on all the time and it has been throughout history. 3 years ago, the house down the street from me sold for $139,000. Last year, I tried to buy it for $29,000, and while I was here in Australia in October, it was sold at auction for $4,900 cash.
Damn.
Yeah, that's right. And you buy a house for $4,900 and you get $900 a month rent for it. Pretty good at return, wouldn't you say? 100% a year for the rest of your life. Nice retirement paycheck. Do that on 10 houses, and you're living on a cruise ship for the rest of your life.
Okay, thank you.
There's no shortage of ways to make money. There's a shortage of ambition to get the money made. Question?
Hello again. Maybe I heard wrongly, but you named natives, not only of this country, but other countries as well, as Aborigines. Is it the way you pronounce it? Because you didn't say
AB means no. Aborigine means no origine. Therefore, I dropped the negative condition of state when I told the Aborigines back in June last year that your name is not an Aborigine, you're an Origine. Stop calling yourself a no original person. Well, 3,400 Aborigine tribes immediately adapted the word Origine and said, we're no longer Aborigines. The American Indian was the same way. That's what Indian means, no original contract. That's because they wrote everything in hieroglyphics. They didn't have written contracts. So they called them Indians. And they went out and they killed the Indians because they didn't have contracts and stole the land, which is alien, invaded their territory. And the Americans, back in 1880, they gave the Indians blankets that had smallpox on and chickenpox, and they genocided them through germ warfare.
Common.
Yeah, the same thing happened. The whaler guys came in with chickenpox and measles and mumps and typhus and whooping cough and took out 98% of the Hawaiians, the Maoris, and the Aborigines here in Australia. That happened in the Philippine Islands and Fiji and every place else. The whole South Pacific was not immune to the germs of Europe. When it showed up here, destroyed everybody.
Thank you.
Maybe I heard things incorrectly, or maybe I'm making assumptions. A couple of things that you've said over the last 2 days don't sort of sit right with me. One of them is my understanding of Rothschilds and the tremendous wealth that he has, and the inequity in the world, the numbers of people who starve and die every day.
1.5 billion people starve, are going hungry every day and are illiterate.
And the other thing also was in terms of those people who were trying to sue the American government for wrongful death, I guess, in the 9/11. And in both those instances, in the first instance, you mentioned that you have gone to Rothschilds and said to him, this is the way we're going to structure things in terms of the language, and you're going to be more wealthy than you have been if you follow this, and also put the situation with those other people, the wrongful death. I would have thought that that's inequity in both instances, and the not allowing those people the wrongful death when it was actually the government that instigated that whole process.
Correct.
I have a problem with that.
Okay. The syntax is going to disrupt a whole lot of industries. It is going to make a whole lot of changes. There is going to be a lot of unfairness as this thing works its way through the system. People who don't know will become harvested. People that do know will be doing the harvesting. And the information is made public to everyone equally. The intelligence of a person that has a 200 IQ will more than likely harvest a person that has a 100 IQ. And they can't defend themselves because they don't have the technology to defend themselves, both in the form of contract nor tools. And this is the strong always conquer the weak. That's the life of nature. It's how nature weeds out the weak, just like in the animal kingdom. And the humans are no different. The word human means monster. It means to feed upon its own kind. They're cannibals. And the technology in syntax is the only way you're going to get fairness. And where I am being fair to one person, the other 3,800 people who hired attorneys that lied to their clients, that knew that syntax was a lie, all got swept up in the same trap. But did any of those attorneys who knew how to read and write stop and fix it and correct their their clients? Did their clients sue to be corrected? No, not one single one of them came forward to do it the correct way. They had copy. Marifino's case was not Marifino, but Mariana's case was public record. But because they didn't understand syntax, they didn't have the knowledge, because they hadn't been to a seminar, to use it in the first place. So it isn't that it's unfair. People don't know they don't know. And when you don't know what you don't know, you find out what you do not know. And then you study until you get to a position where you know what you know, so you can go out there and stop and correct it. And the only thing I can do is teach seminars like this here, make videotapes, put stuff up on the internet so that the world can study. Everybody has a different learning curve. You know, 50 years ago we didn't have television, which brings all this information. And even the information that we got from television was censored. Today you got internet. That is totally uncensored. Look at the difference of thousands of millions of programs you can look at on the internet for getting information. And there's a lot of things you don't agree with on the internet, but that's your choice to turn it off. It's the other people's choice to turn it on and study it. And you know what? Your country censors what comes through on the internet, because I can't even get my own emails here. I can get some of my emails, but not all my emails, because they censor information that comes into your country. I go into a hotel, I got 10 sports channels and 1 news channel, and I know damn well that's not reality. How many of you have seen actual footage of the 9/11 buildings collapsing and what happened there? Anybody want to see them? I got them on my laptop. I'll turn it on, you guys can watch it. This is classified footage, shot by military helicopters that circled the buildings as they were falling down, if you want. It's only a couple-minute presentation of pictures.
Is that on those DVDs outside?
No. I have several different versions shot by several different individuals. Because I am who I am, and I have a worldwide network, I get information sent to me continuously of classified footage from people who are there at the sites. I've been to the World Trade Center site myself. Went to New York, and I personally looked at it and seen, you know, the buildings around there and everything that happened. I was at the Pentagon the day after it got hit. I had one of my students, when the Flight 93 was supposedly shot down or fell down out of the sky, they said an F-17 came down, shot the thing, and took off, went back up into the clouds. It was a military strike. And when they hit it and vaporized it, because they've got the tools that will vaporize things, that will take aluminum and steel and carbon fiber and reduce it to a single atom of smoke through electromagnetic pulse. Just like the World Trade Center came down as a big giant pile of dust. So they got toys out there you don't even know about. Enough said about that.
On the situation with the World Trade Center, I'll have to agree to disagree. I still can't see any validity in not letting those people, they're suffering just because they didn't know. And I still haven't had any clarification on Rothschilds.
Oh, okay, Rothschild. When I met Rothschild, I said, "Are you really worth that much money?" He says, "Well, I'm responsible for management." He says, "But I only got a couple of $1 million of my own money." I says, "Well, does all that money improve your life?" He says, "Well, these are the clothes I wore today. I have a meal, I eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I sleep in a bed at night." He says, "Whether I've got $1 million in the bank or I've got $1 trillion in the bank, it doesn't change my day-to-day living. I can't touch the money because it's all committed through contracts. It's being used. It isn't where you have a big pile of money that would fill this room to the top. How fast can you spend things? People don't even realize what $1 billion is. You know how big a semi-trailer is? If you filled it for $100 bills, that would be $1 billion. What are you going to do? Carry around 40 tons of paper? It's not realistic. Look at Bill Gates, the Google brothers, or Warren Buffett. 40 to 60 billion dollars each one of these guys are worth. And they give it away. Doesn't make them any better. They even eat at McDonald's. They don't care. It's just a bunch of numbers you put out here, and they still work every day, same as anybody else. They probably work harder than any of you do for your paycheck every day. Doesn't change a darn thing. I'm financially independent. You put out here, and they still work every day, same as anybody else. They probably work harder than any of you do for your paycheck every day. Doesn't change a darn thing. I'm financially independent. I go out and I work every day, 20 hours a day. Whether I get paid or not isn't going to change my life one bit. I go to the casino and I gamble. Whether I make money or I lose money isn't going to change my day one bit. I'm still going to eat, sleep, and teach. So it's just a lot of numbers that sit out here in cyberspace. In the entire year, I bet you don't carry 1% of your actual cash in your pocket that you are in possession of in any given year. And all the rest of it is a bunch of numbers that float around between banks and credit unions and MasterCard and paying bills and buying food, and it's all done with a magnetic strip. It's just a bunch of numbers that floats around out there. And that's the same thing with Rothschild. It's just all electronic numbers that go here and there. It's bookkeeping.
But he's not using it for good.
How do you know? You don't know. That's just it. You're told one thing. Some of it is good, some of it is evil, some of it goes to scientific projects. You know, all your military governments worldwide have black ops, which they don't account, there's no accountability. Just like the movie Charlie Wilson's War. Some of you have seen the movie with Tom Hanks. Good movie. It's a true story too, by the way. Misappropriations, it's called. And they use, and that's how the Afghans defeated the Russians. And never once was there any implication that we were involved with it, because it all happens behind the scenes. There's a whole world of things that happen out here that we don't know about. No more than you know about what goes on inside your own body, or how your brain works, or how all your organisms in your body keep you alive every day. You don't sit there and worry about it at night. It just is. We're only the sum of our knowledge that we can actually put our finger on, and we only can talk one word at a time. We can't absorb all the knowledge in the world simultaneously. I'm a guy, you ask me a question and I'll download like a computer. Same thing with that computer there. You ask it a question, it'll give you an answer. And if that computer doesn't have its capacity to log onto the internet, and I will go out and get the answer for you. Or you can go down, before I had computers, I had to go down to the Milwaukee Public Library and sit there 40 hours a week reading books, the old-fashioned way. Do research. And then when the computers came out, it exponentialized my ability to learn, because it gave me information instantly. And it wasn't that I was reading black and white, and if I didn't have enough light, my eye couldn't read as fast as an illuminated screen that could scroll down. I didn't have to turn pages. It read at the speed I could comprehend things at. And you get faster and faster and faster, and the smarter you get, the faster you get. And then you learn about endorphins and how to make your mind not work at 10%, but 20% or 30%. And you become a computer yourself, of being able to absorb information at an exponential level. And you get smarter and smarter as you get older. But then we all live in the bell curve. We start with diapers. We end in diapers. Right? So we hit our peak at about 40. And then after that, some of us are good up to about 60, but then after that, we start losing a little bit every day. Like they say, the first thing to go is the brain. Question?
My question's more of an invitation, really. I've got a few stamps here.
Oh yeah, he's got the navigator stamps. He's got about 200-300 of them over here. If anybody wants navigator stamps.
Anyone wants to see what they look like? 'Cause there's been a lot of talk about these stamps.
He's got all kinds of dollar stamps with the gold seals on. He collects them. So if anybody wants to buy stamps from him, he's the guy to see. Oh.
There you go.
And if you're a stamp collector, you know anything about this? If you've got full sheets that are virtually like this, they're worth a lot more than independent stamps. And stamps are really good value, especially gold stamps. These kind of things like this here are collector's items. You can put them away, and when you're 65 years old, you can go out and sell them on eBay. That's the unique thing about today, is the eBay opens the entire world to you for advertising. So if you guys need stamps, this guy will sell them to you.
And a lot cheaper than you'll get them on eBay, and you can't buy whole sheets on eBay.
Are they the sort of stamps that we need to produce documents for?
Those would be for gold certified documents if you have something like that you want to do. In other words, claims of the life we use the red fox stamps on because those are your life documents. I use the red fox stamps for federal lawsuits that I file, and I only put one on the original that goes into the file. Everybody else gets the Rockefeller stamps, which is the Federal Reserve, and those are copies. But I still pay for the value of sending them out to the individuals. But the one that's held in the courthouse has the gold stamp. Now, to break the continuance of evidence of the value of this, what the governments are doing is photocopying them and then destroying the paper so that there's no paper record, and they just keep it on video. So if it ever comes down to show us the evidence, oh, the tape got erased or the file got deleted. So they can cover up the lie, because this technology exposes all the lies they're doing. So you always make two originals, one for yourself and one for the court. Okay?
With the gold stamp on top.
Yeah, I always do backups. Yes?
You say the courts and everything, they're trying to cover up all that sort of side of things, but one day there's going to be a shift when everyone's going to be using this language. How far into the future do you see that?
I see it 2012, April 6, 2012. That's 2 years from now. And I see that it's going to be a 9-month transition shift, and on 12/21/2012 it'll be official globally. And based on the fact that in 10 years I've gone from a website where I was just getting a few hundred hits a day to 40 to 50,000 new people every day and 400 million people on my website right now. By 2012 I should have 51% of the world's population that have knowledge and have a voting capacity to vote in with knowledge, syntax, the correct syntax. And governments will have to change. And I've made this statement at all the seminars, and I think the government is hearing me because of the amount of activity that's taking place. And the amount of military personnel, all new military personnel. I'm constantly getting hits from military organizations, judicial sites, where the courthouses, universities. When I was over in Auckland, I did 2 presentations at the University of the Maori University for all the deans. And then one of the deans stood up and said, "But can we trust that you just told us the truth?" And 6 of the other deans had been studying my technology for over 2 years and said, "We've tried to defeat it. It is a truthful statement that he's just showed us today, and we will endorse and assist the rest of you deans in understanding this at the Maori University." So they want to bring in the syntax and teach it to all Maoris that go to the Maori University, because they know that's the only way they're going to defeat a fiction which has invaded their country for 173 years. And
Why
they,
April 25th, 2012?
oh, there's two dates. 4/6/2012 is the Mayans, and 12/21/2012 is the Egyptians. And they both claim that that's the end. And Pandora is destroyer of worlds. Destroyer is a pronoun, of is an adverb, modifies the verb world. I destroy the verb world. This technology destroys the verb world. Yeah.
So we're getting sort of towards the end of the day, and people have gone through a lot this weekend with the technology and looking at what's what. And it'd be good to be able to have a conversation about what a change would maybe look like and what sort of structures may be in place as far as the community of people is concerned. Some of the things that I've been talking to people about, or ideas that I've had, and I tell you right now that none of my ideas are original. Everything that I have comes from other sources, and I tell you right now that none of my ideas are original. Everything that I have comes from other sources. And it occurs to me that the only way we're going to get anywhere is with a sense of community, is with people joining together, combining the knowledge and formulating our paperwork and our structures together, and part of that is by forming a society, using quantum documents with a quantum constitution, to where then we can stand as a separate entity to the fiction that is there, and that we can then approach the governments, that sort of thing, and if need be, we can go offshore if they decide that they're not going to listen. But we do need knowledge, and we need people with their documentation.
In other words,
correct.
The argument you're making here is, how do we get this program forward? The people, a group of people cannot file a class action against your government to make a change. You can, however, go to the election board with an idea of what change is. Then go door to door and educate the general public and get signatures on a referendum to be placed on the ballot, which is, you have your spring elections and your fall elections. And twice a year, most communities have elections to pass specific laws and elect new people to govern, like aldermen, congressmen, senators, judges. And there's specific ideas whether to make smoking legal or not, to make marijuana legal or not, to control different controlled substances, to pass a law saying how high a building can be in a given community, if we're going to expand the airport, if we're going to put an expressway through and go ahead and buy up all these houses. There's going to be all kinds of different rules and regulations. Well, it's no different if you want to bring in a new law or change a constitution to a government. You have to go door to door. It's required that you have a specific number of signatures or autographs on a referendum supplied to the election board to have that placed on the ballot. On the ballot then, when all the people go to the polls, you can take out and pay for advertising on TV, just like when the president runs or anybody runs for public office, they have an advertising budget and they educate the people. So when you go to the polls, you know what you're talking about. And it's the same thing with getting this program through. If the people are willing to donate money, or you have fund drives to raise money so that you can advertise Syntax on open television or TV or on radio or the internet, to create awareness of the syntax and the condition of language, and then have it voted in. And once it's voted in, then the government will have to change, because it's the will of the people, where 51% are going to make changes. You just spontaneously can't change things.
So you've got in Hawaii, you've got a society of people. And I think when I was speaking to you some time ago, it was around 4,000. I believe it's up to 6,000 people now.
About 6,000 people now, yeah. And that's only taken 1 year to get there.
So with what they're doing, they effectively have their own society. They've established themselves as being lawful and setting standards that are higher than standards that the government have as far as registration of motor vehicles, with safety.
In other words, public safety is number one, and then everything else can be built below that, yes.
So now, because they were sovereign to Hawaii, they've got the superior claim to the land through the DNA links to the land. That's the reason why they can do that.
It's the same reason here why you guys can do it, and the same reason the Maoris can do it in New Zealand.
Now, in that situation, is that only the originating people that can do it, or is it anybody that was born here?
You were born here. Everybody who was born here is now party to that organized position.
Now, through that structure of that society and through an agreement on values and how you're going to conduct yourself, that would be one way to create a presence in the community and then to spread and to have an organised structure where people can see that it's not something similar to anarchy.
Right, you don't want anarchy. You have a organized contract, organized structure of fairness to everyone.
So what we would be doing is more than just complaining about what is wrong. We would be acknowledging what is wrong, but bringing the solution to what is wrong so that people can see what the alternative is.
Correct. Did I complain about anything today at the seminar? I gave you solutions. Solutions through syntax. We know what's wrong. We've lived in this wrong world our whole life. The only thing this program does is shows you an alternative way of thinking to improve yourself. That's it. We didn't say the government was bad. You guys still get your 3 hots in a cot. You like driving on your roads. Your cars run really nice. You got safety equipment everywhere. Nobody's sick. There's no anarchy in the streets. You don't have to worry about diseases. You got hospitals and pharmacies to give you medicine. I mean, all the different things that give you all the luxuries of life. TVs, computers, electricity, running water, sewer, take a hot shower, carpeting. I mean, it's really nice. You're not living on dirt floors in a hut someplace.
If we're to develop our own society and we work in quantum, it then gives us the opportunity to provide access to some of the technologies that have been suppressed by challenging the documents that are in place to keep those technologies suppressed.
If there's a negative technology, yes. If you want to improve, again, get your people together and get laws passed by election. Even the World Court said, what you're doing, Dave, is right, but until you get people to vote on it, what we did in Hawaii. The Hawaiians were only recognized because the Hawaiians got together and they voted for the Constitution. They voted to have a charter that they could say we are under Robert's Rules of Order as a corporation. We make decisions as a corporate entity of 20 people. And then when we finally make a decision, we take it back to the people to vote on. They're doing everything they're supposed to, but they use a quantum language instead of adverb verb.
Just like to wrap up.
And so, all at my seminars.
Just while David's writing away, you've got the opportunity to continue your learning. We have webcasts where we teach syntax.
Oops.
And we always have access to David as well. The best thing that I can recommend for you to get familiar with the quantum and with the syntax is if you get the DVDs that are available with David and just watch them. Don't try to sort of study and remember like you did at school. Just listen, because as you do, you gradually pick up more and more pieces. It just becomes part of what you're aware of. And time is the best thing that you can utilise.
Or you got bad writing.
What's that?
I thought mine was bad.
Well, the point is I can write frontwards and backwards with both hands, both ways, or both directions simultaneously.
Never doubt.
So I'd like to thank David very much for making himself available to us.
And I thank you all, and I expect you all to email me your questions and your any other problems you have, if there's challenges along the way. And remember, anybody gets in your face about anything, call me, I got a solution for it.